It led to violence.
4 little girls were killed in Birmingham yesterday.
It's still present today.
And I just want our kids to have the same opportunities to be able to put their best foot forward.
Well, it's probably different in Bessemer or in Hoover.
It affects everyone.
Racism kills dreams, it kills aspirations.
The fight isn't new.
And we knew that we had God on our side if we were doing it in a righteous way.
And it's far from over.
And it's going to take everyone coming together.
We are only strong as our weakest link.
But there is hope.
I've got a lot of faith in the younger generation.
The Lord puts you in places because He knows that you're going to make a difference.
Project Community, working toward change. Racial and social injustice is something we as a country have historically faced.
And recently, many cities have seen violence and unrest, much of it sparked by the killings of Black people like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor.
Here in Alabama, we're no stranger to civil unrest and the fight for change. Alabama was the epicenter of the ugly fight for civil rights more than 50 years ago. It's difficult to look back on these historic images. How far have we come since this? And what still needs to be done in the fight for equality? Bishop Calvin Woods was there at the beginning of the struggle. He was beaten and arrested. He protested and organized with his brother Abraham Woods, as well as Fred Shuttlesworth, Ralph Abernathy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And we knew that we had God on our side if we were doing it in a righteous way. And as a result of that, we gained more white people and other people joined in, those who were really sincere, determined to make up the hedge.
One of those white people was Charles Morgan Jr., a Birmingham civil rights attorney who gave a moving and historic speech to the all-male, all-white Young Men's Business Club the day after the 16th Street bombing that killed 4 little girls. His son read an excerpt from that speech for us.
4 little girls were killed in Birmingham yesterday. A mad, remorseful, worried community asks, who did it? Who threw that bomb? The answer should be, we all did it. Every citizen and every school board member and school teacher and principal and businessman and judge and lawyer who has corrupted the minds of our youth. Every person in this community who has in any way contributed during the past several years to the popularity of hatred is at least as guilty or more so than the demented fool who threw that bomb.
That speech made headlines around the country and made the Morgan family a target. Within weeks, they fled to escape threats from the Klan. Charles Morgan Jr. died in 2009, but the organization where that speech was delivered is now ensuring his legacy is not forgotten. The YMBC started the Morgan Project to not only condemn racial injustice, but to work towards positive change. They're working with Morgan's son on the project.
My father believed in the United States Constitution. He carried it with him. He believed in our judicial system. He had a general sense of fairness.
The group is fundraising now in hopes of getting Morgan's 1964 book, A Time to Speak, published again. And they want to create a curriculum for schools based on that book. It's how the more than 60-year-old YMBC, now including all races, genders, and ages, is pushing forward with the fight for justice and equality.
I've got a lot of faith in the younger generation.
Young people may be the answer for the future, but many deal with inequity in education. It's something made very evident when COVID-19 hit.
When students went to virtual learning, it became obvious some school districts struggled more than others. A digital divide. The WVTM 13's Ian Wright shows us how some districts are working to bridge that gap.
Books, buildings, and this year broadband. In a time when remote or virtual learning is the only option for some students, it has never been more clear that not everyone has the same opportunity to learn.
COVID-19 has exposed to us is that we have people in 2020 that do not have access to high-speed internet.
That digital divide isn't unique to Jefferson County, but does race play a factor in all of this? Let's take a look at race, ethnicity, and access to internet in 4 central Alabama school districts, some of the largest, using data from the National Center for Education Statistics. In Hoover City schools, 70% of students are white and 17% are black, according to NCES. 91% have access to broadband, and the district says the number with access is even higher. In Jefferson County schools, 61% of students are white and 33% are black. Just over 78% of households have access to broadband internet. In Birmingham City schools, 70% of students are black and 23% of students are white. Just under 69% have broadband, but the district says that number is likely around 80%. And in Fairfield City schools, where 93% of students are black and 5% are white, just over 64% have access to broadband. That lack of access has forced many school districts like Birmingham City Schools to get creative and find ways for students to connect.
We partnered with T-Mobile, and we were able to invest in nearly $2 million worth of internet hotspots. Those hotspots have been delivered to parents this past week, and we will continue that process next week.
Dr. Mark Sullivan also says children on free and reduced lunch can have their internet bill reimbursed through the end of the year using funding from the CARES Act. So as thousands of students head back to school online, some districts already working through financial challenges face another hurdle, making sure that in a time when students can't walk through the school's front door, they can still get an education. Ian Wrights, WVTM 13 News.
While school districts work to get on more equal footing, so does the housing market.
50 years after it was passed, many of the goals of the Fair Housing Act have yet to be realized, which is why many are facing the challenges of achieving equality in housing head-on.
Homeownership is not only the symbol of achieving the American dream, but in many ways, it's the key to sustaining it.
When we look at our communities, your more affluent places have more access to education, more access to healthier foods, more access to community-based programs and projects.
William Baylor is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Birmingham Association of Realtors. Raised in Bessemer, he saw firsthand how past discrimination affects communities of color. Redlining is an illegal practice. It kept many African Americans out of certain neighborhoods and still affects home values to this day.
When I first came into the real estate world, as a novice, the first question that I asked was, why is property different in Bessemer or in Hoover and other places?
He soon learned the answer. There was little economic investment or development in redlined areas.
And so a home that might have cost someone's grandparent $50,000 and now it's worth about $300,000 in your more affluent places. In your places where it's predominantly people of color, those $50,000 investments are still $50,000 investments or have become dilapidated property.
There are steep racial divides when it comes to home ownership, contributing to the wealth gap between black and white Americans. Analysis of Census Bureau data shows the gap is greater now than in 1940. This virtual Fair Housing Summit was held in August with the National Association of Realtors reaffirming a commitment to fair housing practices outlined in this video and in a Fair Housing Declaration.
Discrimination distorts the marketplace. It prevents consumers from having the housing opportunities they deserve. It can deny real estate agents commissions, deny our neighborhoods the benefits of integration, and it can stifle our economy.
It holds us accountable to be a good steward of how we sell homes and property, and it causes us to be aware of being consciously engaged in fighting against implicit bias.
From the home to the house of worship, there's no area not touched by bias.
But some believe churches have been quiet for too long. They think now is the time to start a discussion on racial equality and discover true unity.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Moore.
Pastor Mike Moore of Faith Chapel in Birmingham thinks it's high time
to speak out against racism.
I think God has been trying to get the church's attention for decades.
Pastor Mike began a series at his church this summer called Muted Voice to begin a discussion about division in our society and the church.
Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 said that the most segregated hour in Christian America is 11 o'clock on Sunday. Fast forward 57 years later, approximately 90% of African American Christians worship in all Black churches. Approximately 90% of white American Christians worship in all white churches.
Danny Wood pastors a predominantly white church.
There's a word that is thrown out a good bit, and it's systemic racism.
Michael Wesley pastors a predominantly Black church.
Systemic racism is the whole system that has been designed to be anti-Black.
As you can see, they've started their own discussions about racial equality.
Things are so much better than they were in the 60s, but it's that underlying systemic racism that a lot of us, as I'd say as a white race, we don't see that.
In government, in education, in politics, in banking, in real estate, in every aspect of the systems of this country, there have been the racial divides.
And that's not the way God meant it. Pastor Mike says it's all in your Bible.
God connects unity to his manifestation in the earth. And in fact, in Psalms 133, it says how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. And it's critical that we speak out against racism. In fact, I believe that racism is the greatest sin in the body of Christ today.
Moore knows it's a taboo subject for some churches, but it's a discussion that must be had.
Racism kills dreams, it kills aspirations, it kills, but most of all, it kills unity.
Most of us look to our elected officials to fix the ongoing problem of division in our nation. Pastor Mike recognizes changes have come and more changes are necessary, but he adds, you can't really legislate hate.
The problem, though, with these practical, needed changes is they don't change the heart. They don't change the inside. Only the gospel can change the inside.
Still ahead, athletes using their platform to create change. And
when you leave a young man to fend for himself, sometimes they get desperate and do desperate things.
What a local district attorney is doing outside the classroom to help today's youth become tomorrow's leaders. Plus, the difference music can make in a child's life. Project Community working toward change.
As our society strives for change, some people are going above and beyond to ensure the next generation has the guidance and opportunity to be their best. One of those people here in Birmingham, District Attorney Danny Carr, who looks to our youth to change the future.
People ask me, why do I go and talk in schools all the time?
Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr.
Why I try to go to these different boys clubs and talk.
Spends a lot of his personal time.
Why I speak at a church all the time.
Getting personal with the youth in his community.
I do it because I understand that a lot of the guys who, when I was young, walking back and forth to school with, it's just by the grace of God that I didn't make a stupid decision as a young man, being from my neighborhood.
Someone else made a stupid decision that changed Carr's life forever.
My little brother was murdered after graduating from high school before starting college. He was murdered solely because some guys wanted the car he was in. They took the car, and instead of just taking the car, they murdered him. So I live with that every day.
You'd think that might have hardened Danny's heart, but this DA believes every situation is not so cut and dry.
There are some young guys who did something stupid because their circumstances was just difficult. And sometimes when you're desperate, when there's no food on the table, when your utilities are not on, when your parents are not there to guide you and to mentor you and to show you that they love you and care about you. When you leave a young man to fend for himself, sometimes they get desperate and do desperate things.
As Carr shares his perspective, the young men return the favor.
I was talking to some young men at McAlpine Park, and I asked them, I said, what's the fascination about guns? Tell me why. What is it about it? One young man raised his hand and said, Dan, I'm going to tell you. He said, man, I go to school and I have a good lunch. And then when I get home, you know, my parents are not there. One of them, you know, my dad is missing. My mom is on drugs. But my little sister is over there and she's crying. I flip the light switch, the light doesn't come on. And she's hungry. What am I to do? Use the quadratic equation at that point? You know, what am I to do? So those are real life issues. And those are issues that we have to address as a society.
Carr started the District Attorney's League of Gentlemen, a mentoring program meant to fill voids in some at-risk student lives.
A lot of kids, they don't have like the presence that they want, so they look for it in the wrong places. That can be not focusing in school or just going out and doing all the wrong things for all the wrong reasons.
Hoping to show them the right way.
And I truly believe that sometimes that the Lord puts you in places because he knows that you're going to make a difference.
Something you might not think about when talking about opportunities for our youth is music. Learning to play an instrument can teach discipline and even lead to better grades.
But some underserved schools don't have access to quality instruments. WVTM 13's Bria Douglas shows us the lengths one band director is going to get those instruments and the joy at another school that finally got them.
Hearing his students play is music to band director Michael Parks' ears. Even better, he says, is how it does wonders for their education.
Music just has a link to the academics. Research has shown that when kids are involved in sports or in band and stuff like that, they do well and exceed in their academics as well.
But for more than a decade, the Bessemer City High School Band marched to the beat of some old instruments. That is, until this year.
The Bessemer City School Board recently approved $120,000 for new instruments and uniforms. The band director says the new instruments are long overdue.
They're waiting to rip open every box. I've been here since 2004, so some of the instruments have actually been here that long.
At some other high schools, stressing the need for music funding is like a broken record. Band director P.J. Howard says the condition of Sidney Lanier's instruments are the cause of some missed notes.
I was a little ticked off because my band, you know, isn't going to have a fair chance to perform because we don't have proper equipment.
A lack of resources for predominantly black schools is why Howard embarked on an 800-mile walk from Montgomery to Kansas City, Missouri. He wants to raise money for new instruments and bring awareness about the need for students to have equal opportunities, no matter their race or the zip code they live in.
There's schools in the very same cities that have thriving arts programs, whether it be choir, theater, drama, band, you know, even string ensembles. And I just want our kids to have the same opportunities to, you know, to be able to put their best foot forward and market themselves in the best way possible.
According to the National Association for Music Education, students who play instruments have better SAT scores. Parks says he's thankful for the harmonious collaboration with the Bessemer School Board to ensure a strong music department.
One of the fortunate things about Bessemer is that they have all the resources in order to make extracurricular activities work.
It's a successful duet Howard wants at his school as well, but until then, he'll continue to do what he can to raise funds. He finished his 800-mile walk in Kansas City earlier this month. An instrument company there will partially sponsor his band. Bria Douglas, WVTM 13.
Up next, is support for the Black Lives Matter movement waning? We're going to hear from the leaders of some local chapters about that and about why unity is so vital to inspire change. The summer we've seen just how important many feel it is to stand up and share their voice. The University of Alabama and Auburn football teams are no exception, both using their platforms to create social change in positive ways. In June, hundreds, including Auburn players, marched to Toomer's Corner. And in August, members of the Tide marched to Foster Auditorium, where then Governor George Wallace had his stand in the schoolhouse door moment in 1963 in an effort to block desegregation. The players aren't alone. Black Lives Matter and other groups have taken up the fight for equality, started by civil rights pioneers decades ago.
Activists in our area say real change won't occur unless people of all races get involved. The diversity of those involved in protests over the past several months got a lot of attention. Several studies early on showed a spike in support for Black Lives Matter from non-blacks, but more recent studies show that white support is dwindling around the country.
So that's definitely not the case here in Birmingham and surrounding municipalities. Here we've actually seen an increase of white allyship and white supporters.
Mackenzie Clark of BLM Gadsden says, make no mistake, this movement is about Black lives, but it's a movement that will benefit us all.
We are only strong as our weakest link. If we continue to put Black people at a disadvantage for something as arbitrary as skin color or their hair, how it's made and things like that, if we actually close those doors for those people, our community as a whole will not thrive.
And they say it'll take a united front to achieve real change and true equality.
And it's going to take everyone coming together, black, white, everyone literally coming together and push a movement that centers humanity and not necessarily race. And that's really what this is about.
If you'd like to get involved and make your voice heard, there are plenty of ways to do that. After the break, we'll tell you how. America and Alabama are no strangers to racial and social injustice throughout history. And as you can see, many are striving to make our society more inclusive and understanding.
If you want to be a part of it, we've posted some resources at WVTM13.com, links to organizations that might interest you.
But remember, getting involved doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. It's as easy as having an open discussion and starting a dialogue.
That's what we're doing through our Project Community Initiative, sharing ideas and working toward change.